So welcome back everyone, this is Mayank and now we are going to discuss about the last topic of our chapter, interest rate swaps. The meaning of swap is very simple, sir. Straightforward, simple, in easy language. It means exchanging something with what we have. See, so if I have something, I'm going to give it to you. You have that thing. You are going to give it to me. So what will be the procedure? It's very simple, sir. First of all, you need to understand that interest rate swaps are not traded on exchange. So there are no rules. It is over the counter market contract. It's just like forward rate agreement. What happens in the FRA and interest rate swaps is both can be customized depending upon the needs of the parties, whereas the other two derivatives like interest rate futures and interest rate options, both of them are traded on the exchange, and that's why everything related to these are standardized and decided by the exchange. So we have to either take it or leave it in case of interest rate futures and options. But in FRA and interest rate swaps, we can frame the transaction as per our need. The major purpose of the swap is to hedge parties. Hedge parties from the risk of interest rate. Now, see, in order for the two parties to enter into a swapping contract, you need to understand that the requirement of both the parties should be opposite. So it's just like a magnet. When you keep two magnets, the north and the north pole cannot connect with each other. It's the north and the south pole that will connect with each other. It is going to be the same in the interest rate swaps. If I am of this, I'm expecting that in future the market rates are going to rise. Your expectation should be the market rates are going to fall, and only then we can enter into a transaction. Only then we can enter into a transaction of interest rate swaps. What will happen? You will believe that your prediction will come true. I will believe that my prediction will come true, and both the parties will enter into a transaction. Wait for the maturity, and on maturity, what will happen? On maturity, either your prediction will be right or my prediction will be right. Whosoever's prediction is the reality on that date, one party will have gain, one party will have loss. That's so for sure. But what you can do is you can remove the risk. Both of us can remove the risk of interest rate, unknown interest rate. We can fix we can fix what are going to be the cash outflow for both of us. Let's say, for example, you are the borrower, I am also the borrower. You are the borrower, I am also the borrower. The risk to both of them in general is the rise in interest rate. But rise in interest rate is the risk to a party who has taken the loan at floating rate. But it is not the risk to a party who has taken the loan at a fixed rate. Understand this by this. Understand the situation by this diagram. So let's say you are the borrower. I am also the borrower. Let's say you have taken loan at floating rate, and I have also taken loan, but I have taken it at fixed rate, and the rate is 10%. Floating rate, let's say it is LIBOR plus 0.50. So this is going to be interest payment for who is this person? Let me just write it down. You and me. Okay. So your cash outflow is at floating rate at every reset period. So you are paying interest to the bank. Since both of us are borrower, we will be paying interest to the bank. I will also be paying interest to the bank. Now let's just keep it here. This is bank. you will be paying L plus 0.5 every time. I will also be paying the interest, but that's 10% fixed. Let's say, for example, for the sake of simplicity, the loan taken by both of us is 100 crore each, and it has been taken for, let's say, 5 years. Keeping it simple, annual payment will be there. Now, we have taken the loan, 1 year has completed, 4 years are left. Now, what is happening? You, borrower, you are thinking that the interest rate in the market now is going to rise. If it actually goes up, you will have to pay more interest in the coming time, and that's what the risk to you is, because the principal amount of 100 crore is same, but the cost will keep on increasing every year if the LIBOR increases, because you have a loan of a floating rate. Then you might ask a question, someone might ask a question, that why did we actually borrowed at a floating rate when we have this risk? It's very simple, sir. You borrowed the loan 1 year back, and at that time it might be the situation in the economy might be like that you expected that the floating rate is going to go down in the future, but in 1 year's time your perception has changed. It has exactly going opposite. Now you are thinking that instead of falling it is going to go up, but you have already taken a loan. Now you cannot just simply cancel the loan, because you will have to return that 100 crores immediately if you want to cancel it. So what is the option for hedging? You cannot just keep on watching the interest rate to go up, paying higher interest rate every year to the bank. So the risk to you is rise in interest rate. Am I right? This is the risk to you. Now in this scenario, it is very important to understand that how we can hedge ourselves from the risk of rising interest rate. It's very simple, sir. Convert yourself from a floating rate loan to a fixed rate loan, and that's it. You can just hedge yourself. Convert yourself into a fixed rate loan. How to do that we are going to learn in a while. Now let's talk from my angle. I am the borrower. I have taken a fixed rate loan. Okay. And my view for the future is the rates are going to fall. The risk to me is falling interest rate. How come? Sir, I will tell you. Let's say, for example, next year the LIBOR goes down to 8%. Okay. So what will be the maximum payment that I would have made if I would have borrowed it at floating rate? 8 plus 0.5, 8.5%. So when the floating rate is going down, the interest rates in the markets are going down, I will still pay 10% fixed. So I don't want to pay the extra amount when I know that I cannot take the profit, or I cannot take the benefit of falling interest rate. Fall in the interest rate is good for the people who have taken floating rate. And now I'm now understand that if the interest rates are going to fall every year I will still pay 10% fixed. See, interest rate will go like this, and I will pay the fixed amount. I will still pay the fixed amount every year. This much, 10% fixed when the rates are going down. Is there any way to hedge myself? Or let me just draw the same for this guy also, that means you. In this case, we were expecting that the interest rates will go up, and since we have a floating rate, our payment will also be like this. Do you understand what is happening? With the rise in the interest rate, my cash outflow is also rising. But in this case, with the fall in the interest rate, my cash flow is still fixed. So both the parties are at risk. Understand this situation. When the interest rate are rising, the floating rate borrower is at risk. When the interest rates are falling, the fixed rate borrower is at risk. And both the parties now can hedge themselves, because both of them has opposite view for the future. obviously one of the two will become true. The after 3 months interest rate will either would have gone up or would have gone down. But today both of them are thinking exactly opposite, and both of them are scared of making high interest payment to the bank. They don't want to pay higher amount of interest. So both of them are looking for hedging. Now, can we help them? Yes, sir. Now, how can we hedge both of them? It's very simple, sir. Convert the floating rate borrower to fixed rate. Convert the floating rate borrower to a fixed rate borrower. So, if we convert, let's say for example, how to hedge, I will just write it down. Convert to fixed rate borrower and ask him to convert himself to floating rate. Now understand, this is the red line. This is the red line which will show what will happen after converting. So if this guy converts himself into a fixed rate borrower, he will be paying the fixed rate of interest all the years, right? And it will be, let's say if we fixed it today, it will be like this. So the red line indicates that today you might be paying higher than this, but this at this point, let's say this point, this point, this point, this point. So in the coming year, you will be paying lower interest rate when the actual interest rate will be high. If the interest rates are going to rise, you can shift to this line. You can shift to this type of payment where your interest payment will be fixed and you don't have to worry about the rising interest rate. So that's when we can convert ourselves, or we can hedge ourselves. And to this person, convert to floating rate borrower. Floating rate means whatever the interest rate will be, he will be paying that. So to the floating rate borrower, if once he converts himself, he will be paying the interest in this manner. He will be paying the interest in this manner. So the red line indicates what will happen after conversion. You can clearly see that the red line is going down. In this case, it is going down, means the interest cost to the fixed rate borrower is coming down. And in this case also, even if the interest rates are rising in the market, but the cost to the borrower is same. That means at this point, the interest rates are high, still I'm paying low. Interest rates are high, still I'm paying low. In this case, the interest rates are low and still I'm paying low. Interest rates are low and still I'm paying low. So both the parties can convert themselves. Okay, this is what the main purpose is. Now how to do that? It is through interest rate swaps. It's very simple, sir. Both of them will meet each other. Both of them will meet each other and they will exchange their interest payment with each other. They will exchange their interest payment with each other. That means what? The borrower who has paid the LIBOR to bank will take it back from this borrower. So this borrower, borrower 2, let's say we give them the names. Borrower 2 and borrower 1. It's 1 and 2 will be okay instead of you and Mayank. So borrower 2 will make the payment of LIBOR to borrower 1. So for borrower 1, it is like no floating payment he has made. He will obviously make a LIBOR payment to the bank. Bank has nothing to do with the transaction between both of you. But in net, you can see that borrower will pay LIBOR to the bank and the same will be returned back by the borrower 2. So LIBOR has gone, LIBOR has received. LIBOR is a payment, LIBOR is a receipt, net effect is 0. And in return, since borrower 2 has made some payment to the borrower 1, borrower 1 will make a fixed payment to the borrower 2, that is 10%. Borrower 1 will make a fixed payment to the borrower 2, that is 10%. Now, look how the transaction will happen. For borrower 1, he will pay to the bank how much? LIBOR plus 0.5. Borrower 2 will pay to the bank how much? 10%. This will be as it is. Interest rate swaps will not affect the transactions of each borrower with the bank. It will be honored as agreed between the parties. But now the swaps transactions will happen. Under swap, we will take something and we will give something. Under swap, we will take something and we will give something. So there will be some kind of receipt. And there will be, this pencil is not working, man. Receipt, and there will be some kind of payment. Simply, what are we going to receive? We means the borrower 1 is going to receive whatever he has paid to the bank. So LIBOR is the only floating amount that he has paid to the bank. Don't consider this 0.5 because this was fixed. This was already known. So he will receive the LIBOR from borrower 2. That means borrower 2 will pay the LIBOR to borrower 1. Am I right? If something is cash inflow to one party, it is a cash outflow to other party. So borrower 2. Understood? This is an agreement between both of them. There is no formula to that. And since he has received something from borrower 2, he will have to make a payment of something to borrower 1. So that's, let's say, 10%. Okay, that's outflow. 10%. If he is paying 10% to borrower 2 is receiving 10% from borrower 1, and you can clearly see that minus 10% plus 10%. This 10% is paid to the bank, this is received from the borrower 1, and both of them has closed. Now if you do the total, you can clearly see that both the parties has shifted their net interest cost to the other rate. In this case, you can see minus L plus L will get cancelled. Minus, if it goes in bracket, it is minus 0.5 minus 10. So it's going to be 10.5% net cost. And in this case, minus LIBOR net cost. So both of them have shifted to the other side of the story. That means borrower 2 has a net cost in floating rate now. He has shifted, and borrower 1 has a net cost in fixed rate. You can clearly see when they started the loan with the bank, this borrower 1 was paying floating rate. Now he has converted himself to a fixed rate. When borrower 2 borrowed the money from the bank, he was paying fixed rate. Now he has converted himself to a floating rate. It was all because of their opposite expectation of the interest rate in future. Both of them are exactly opposite, having exactly opposite expectation, and that's why both of them entered into a transaction. And the transaction is very simple, sir. Whatever you have to pay to the bank, just make the payment first of all, and whatever you paid to the bank, you receive it from the other party. You receive it from the other party, and automatically when you do the total, when you do the net, it will be, you will see that we have converted ourselves into some other type of rate. Now if according to borrower 1 the interest rate actually rises, it will be benefit for the borrower 1 because he will be paying the fixed amount of loan when the interest rates are going up. Still he is paying fixed amount of interest cost. But if the borrower 2 was expecting the fall in the interest rate, and if it actually falls, he will be paying the lower interest rate, because whatever it will be, this is going low and he is paying low. That is what is going to happen. In reality, whenever the interest rate will come to the picture, both of them will not make a profit, or both of them will not be happy. One of them will be happy by entering into this transaction, and the other party will suffer loss, because in reality either the loan are going to go up or it is going to go down. It will not go up and down at the same time. So this is what the swapping is. Now everything is dependent on the question to question. We are going to do some calculations, and we are going to see how the cash flows will be settled. Please understand that sometimes this other swapping party is bank. We can enter into a swapping transaction with the bank as well. Bank will keep their commission. Why this happens, I will tell you. Because it is very difficult for a person to find out exactly the other person who is having the opposite mindset or opposite view of the interest rate. So I'm sitting in Mumbai, someone might be in Delhi, and both of us need the swapping arrangement, but we cannot find each other. At that time, both of us can put a request in the bank, and bank has a very good network with each other also, with the other banks as well. So automatically they can match our requirement, and then they can help us entering into a swapping transaction. And for that purpose, they will obviously keep the gain. keep some type of commission. So that will increase our cost of entering into a swap transaction. So all in all, I will tell you one thing: swap has no rules. First of all, there is no formula. Second, third thing, it can be customized between the parties. Fourth thing, the simple meaning of swap is exchanging. Okay. In terms of diagram, we can draw it once. Let's say this is a bank. And this is a bank. And this is one party. This is borrower 2. And we have taken a loan from the bank and we are paying LIBOR plus 0.50. This guy has also taken a loan from the bank and he is paying 10%. They have taken their respective loan. Now they want to shift to the other part. That means he is a floating rate borrower. He wants to shift to the fixed rate. Why? Because he is worried about the rising interest rate. He is a fixed rate borrower. He wants to shift to the floating rate. Why? Because he is worried about the falling interest rate. So both of them will have opposite view. So both of them will enter into a swapping transaction, and the swapping transaction will happen like this. We will pay something and we will receive something. And it's very simple. Whatever we pay to the bank, we receive it from the other party. So what are we going to receive? LIBOR. And what are we going to pay? Fixed amount. Fixed amount of interest can vary. It's not necessary to pay 10%. It can be 9% as well. At that time, there will be some cost to him. Okay. So if you see from both the parties' angle, our outflow was L plus 0.5. Inflow was L and outflow is 10. In this case, outflow is 10, outflow is LIBOR and inflow is 10. So the net will be 10.5% outflow and outflow of L. So we can easily shift ourselves from this was fixed, now we are paying floating. This was floating, now we are paying fixed. This is how the swapping arrangement is done. Let's have a look on the questions. So this is question number 27. 27 that we are going to start with. So P Limited, a dealer quotes all-in cost for a generic swap. Now, first of all-in cost means everything included in that particular percentage. No hidden charges. Generic swap means a simple swap of fixed versus floating. Fixed versus floating. That means someone is exchanging fixed rate with a floating rate swap at 6% against 6 months LIBOR. So this is like 6% versus LIBOR. Someone will take 6% and give LIBOR to other party flat. If the notional principal amount of swap is 8 lakh rupees, calculate the semi-annual fixed payment. It's very simple, sir. 8 lakh, we have to calculate the fixed payment and the fixed rate is 6%. 8 lakh into 6%, everything is per annum. 6% is also per annum. LIBOR is also per annum. So 6% is per annum. That means for semi-annual 3%, 8 into 3%, that's 24,000. It's very easy to calculate. It's not that difficult. That's a semi-annual payment. Now find the first floating rate payment. Floating rate means this LIBOR. For above, if the 6-month period from the effective date of swap to the settlement date comprises of 181 days. Now you have to take it in days. Generic swap is based on 330 by 360 days. So what you can do in case of 6% also, 30 by 360 means for 6 months it is 180 days. Now, but in case of floating rate, they are saying consider 181 days in the 6 month and that the corresponding LIBOR was 5% on the effective date of swap. So it's very simple, sir. 8 lakh multiplied by LIBOR means 5%. This is a floating rate. LIBOR is the floating rate, but 5% is per annum. What are you going to do? 181 divided by 365. That will give you the first payment, first floating rate payment. Someone will give to the other party. Na? Who is paying and who is receiving doesn't matter. So the calculation is again very simple. 8 lakh multiplied by 5% multiplied by 181 divided by 360. Okay, so that's the 2120. So what will happen? I will tell you. Let's say there are two parties, A and B. Both of them decided to exchange fixed versus floating. So let's take A is paying fixed and receiving floating. Okay. Okay. So what will happen? On the first payment, A will pay 24,000 and B will pay 2120 on the first 6 months. 20120. Now understand. So this is the first 6 month. At this date there will be some exchange of fixed and floating payment. Fixed payment though is very well known from the very beginning. Floating payment will be known on that date, which will be 2120. So someone has to pay 24,000 and has to receive 2120. Instead of paying 24,000 and then receiving 2120, what is the practical method to settle in net? So that's what the question is asking you. In question number 2 above, if the settlement is on net basis, how much the fixed rate payer would pay to the floating rate payer? You can easily say that fixed rate payer is having a higher amount for payment than receiving. So whosoever is going to pay fixed amount, he will receive less but pay more. So that's why he is going to be the net payer. 24,000 minus 20,000. That is going to be the settlement amount for the first 6 months. On the next 6 months, this amount will remain same, but the LIBOR will change and accordingly the floating rate payment will change. This is the simple way of swapping. Now you will ask, where is the swapping involved in that? Obviously this question was not given in detail since it is the first question, but I will tell you there was some hidden picture which was not given in the question. There were two parties who wanted to exchange. So let's say for example, he agreed to pay fixed to the other party and the other party agreed to pay floating to the first party. Then you can clearly say that both of them might have taken loan from the bank. This picture is not given in the question. So this is bank and this is bank. Okay. Now you just tell me at which rate each party has taken loan from the bank. Simply saying, if this first party is receiving floating, that means he is paying floating to the bank. And if this party is receiving fixed, that means he is paying fixed to the bank. So what exactly is happening is this first party he has taken a floating rate loan from the bank and he is now worried about the rising interest rate. To the floating rate buyer, rising interest rate is a thing to worry about, and that's why he wanted to shift to a fixed payment. And then this is the swap that we have arranged. To the other party, if you will say he is paying fixed to the bank, that means he is worried about the falling interest rate, because once the interest rate will fall, he will still have to pay the fixed amount and he doesn't want to pay the same amount. He wants to pay lesser amount as the interest rate falls. So this party wants to shift to the floating. So this is exactly the background picture you can imagine, although not given in the question. In the entire question, what has happened, they have just talked about this thing, not the entire scenario. That's why it's just a part of the swap. Okay, let's focus on the next question. Next question is very much similar to the previous one, so you will take it as homework. Okay, semi-annual, first floating rate payment, and then settlement is on net basis. So everything is same. Now let's shift to the question number 29. This is an interesting question. Now, derivative bank entered into a plain vanilla swap. Plain vanilla. I will tell you why the name is vanilla. Just imagine the types of ice cream that you get in the market. There are multiple types of, many types of ice cream available. Mango, strawberry, mixtures, there are various available. But this root or the start of the ice cream always start with this vanilla ice cream. That is called as the basic ice cream without any mixture. Okay, without any combination of two fruits and everything. So in the swap also, the basic type of interest rate swap is fixed versus floating. Fixed versus floating. That's what the plain vanilla swap is. Through an overnight index swap. OIS is a method of we can say swapping, frequency of swapping. Every day's calculation will be made and swapped with each other. So every day's interest rate, or we can say floating rate, will be considered, and every day we are going to calculate interest payable and receivable. Overnight itself means one day. On a principal of 10 crore and agreed to receive MIBOR overnight floating rate for a fixed payment on the principal. See, this is a derivative bank and they entered into this agreement where they agreed to receive MIBOR. What does that mean? So MIBOR is a floating rate and you are agreeing to receive this. That means in swap, what are you going to pay? Fixed. Automatically. If you are receiving floating, that means automatically you are agreeing to pay the fix. Overnight floating rate for a fixed payment on the principal. The swap was entered into on Monday 2nd August 2010. Okay. And was to commence from 3rd August 2010 and run for a period of 7 days. Respective MIBOR rates for Tuesday to Monday. It has to run from Tuesday 3rd August because on Monday it was 2nd August. On Tuesday it will be 3rd August and it has to run. So from Tuesday to Monday the MIBORs are given to you 7.75, 8.15 and so on. If the derivative bank received 317 net on settlement. See, understand, they received net, and received means, can I say every day if I'm paying fix and receiving floating and the net of both is receipt, that means floating was higher than fixed. Can I say that? Floating was higher than fixed by 317 rupees. Okay. Calculate the fixed rate of interest for the swap and interest under both the legs. Legs means fixed leg and floating leg. So on all the 7 days, understand, every day the calculation was being made by us, but the settlement happened only after 7 days at 317 rupees. That too derivative bank received it. Okay, sir. And we have to calculate what was the swap rate for fixed payment. So what is happening? This is derivative bank. This is other party. Every day we are about to receive, like every day we are to receive floating rate which are given to you. So you can easily calculate that amount. 7.75% on 10 crore for 1 day. This is per annum. You have to calculate it for 1 day. 1 divided by 365. Okay. So for all the 7 days, you can easily calculate the floating receipt. But when you will do the total of all the receipt, you will have to deduct 317 net settlement out of that to calculate the fixed payment for 7 days. Because the question says that in net you have received 317. That means the floating amount is 317 rupees higher than the fixed amount that we paid. This is receipt and this is also receipt. So payment will be lesser, na? So we are calculating fixed payment by deducting 317. Now we have the fixed payment. We will divide it by 10 crore for 7 days to find out the fixed rate. So this is how we are going to do the calculation. Have a look. We have created a table. We'll start with the Tuesday. 10 crore is the principal amount at 7.75%. Just multiply 7.75% into 1 divided by 365. Round it off to the nearest rupee. Sunday is a holiday. Work in rounded rupees and avoid decimal working. So don't write anything in decimal. Okay. So when you do the calculation, 10 crore into 7.75% divided by 365, that means for 1 day, you get this much of the amount. This is the amount that the derivative bank is supposed to receive, but it has not received that amount. It has received the settlement after 7 days, that to only 317 rupees. So did we receive this much of the amount? No. So what will happen on the very next day? The next day, this floating rate receipt is to be calculated on the compounded value. 10 crore plus 21,233. Next day, the interest will be calculated on the principal plus the previous interest which was not paid by the other party. And since it was not paid, we are again going to calculate the interest on that. That too 8.15% for the second day. Okay, divided by 365. Now the interest is 222,334. This is also not paid by the other party. We will add that in the previous amount. So 10 crore 21,233 plus 22,334 will be this much, and the third day's interest will be calculated on this. In the similar way, we are going to calculate for all the 7 days. There is one thing that you should notice here. For the Saturday and Sunday, there is only single rate which is 7.98%. I will tell you why. See, from Tuesday to Saturday, Monday, I think. Tuesday, just imagine. This is for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and there is only one rate available. But we have to take it to Monday because we are starting on Tuesday and it has to go for 7 days. From Tuesday, the 7 days end at Monday. And this is a rate for Monday. Why there is no rate for Sunday? After Saturday, we are just having a rate of Monday. What will happen? Because Sunday was a holiday, we are going to apply the same rate as of the previous day. 7.98% will be applicable for Saturday and Sunday. So 2 days calculation will happen on this date. Understand? Into this much percent multiplied by 2 by 365, because 2 days calculation will happen. Now you might agree there is some mistake in that. Saturday's compounded value is not considered. When you multiply by 2 by 365, Saturday's compounded value for Sunday is not considered. And in fact, for Sunday, Friday's value is considered. For Sunday also, Friday's value is considered. So that's something wrong in this table. What you can do instead is Saturday, after Saturday, you just create another row for Sunday and you apply 7.98% once again. That will make sure that you are considering the Saturday's interest also in the principal value. That's okay, but that will be like hardly like some rupees of the difference. And then Monday. So what you did for all the 7 days, you did the calculation of the floating rate receipt. So this was supposed to be received by us 153,740, but we received only this much. Why? Because 153,740 is 317 rupees higher than our fixed payment. So we had to pay this much. We were about to receive this much, but we received only this much. So let's say, for example, 100 rupees is something that you should receive, but you only received 20 rupees. Why? Because 80 was your payable amount. 100 was receivable, 80 was payable, and then only 20 is received. Then only you will receive 20 when 80 is payable. So with the similar logic, we will say that our fixed rate payment would have been for 7 days 153,423. Receivable was this much, payable was this much, and that's why we received only 317 rupees. Now you have the fixed rate amount, but this is for 7 days. So this is your first leg, this is your second leg. Both the legs are calculated and we can easily calculate the fixed rate of interest like this. 153,423 divided by 10 crore multiplied by, understand, this is the 7 days interest. So divided by 7 multiplied by 365 into 100 will give you this rate, 8%. So 8% per annum is the fixed rate of interest that was not given in the question. So this is kind of a reverse calculation that the settlement is given to you. In the previous question, what happened? We calculated floating rate, we calculated fixed rate, and then we calculated the net amount of settlement. In this question, floating is given, net amount is given, fixed was asked to calculate. So that is how you have to do. This is interest rate for 2 days. Alternatively, answer can also be calculated on the basis of 360 days in a year. So the answer will change to that extent. I hope you understood this. Every day we are making a calculation and the settlement is happening at the end of the 7 days. I hope you have understood it. It's easy. It's not that difficult. It's just the calculation that you need to understand. Okay, we'll come to question number 30. 30 and 31 are of a similar nature and this is a little different than the previous one. So I will take a break and I will be back with question number 30. See you. So welcome back everyone. Now we are going to discuss about question number 31 directly, because question number 30 has some problem in it, and I will let you know about the problem after discussion of the question number 31, because 30 and 31 are almost similar with quite some mistakes in question number 30. However, question number 30 was also asked in the exam and 31 was also asked in the exam. But after knowing some mistakes in the question, the institute has changed some pattern and few words in question number 31, and then they asked again in November 20. So have a look on this question first. IB, an Indian firm, has its subsidiary in Japan, and Zaki, a Japanese firm, has its subsidiary in India. Understand what is happening here? Indian firm has a subsidiary in Japan and Japanese firm has a subsidiary in India, and faces the following interest rate. That means both the companies can borrow in both the currencies. If I'm a company, I'm an Indian company, right? You can clearly see here. Just a second. I'm an Indian firm. That means I can borrow in Indian rupees. But I have a subsidiary in Japan. That means I can borrow in Japanese yen also. Similar with the Zaki, which can borrow in both the currencies. Now, if IB wants to borrow and Zaki wants to borrow in INR, the floating rates are available to them, and in Japanese yen, the fixed rates are available to them. Now forget about the INR and Japanese yen, that doesn't matter. What matters the most is the floating rate and the fixed rate. So IB can buy in the floating and fix as well. Zaki can buy in floating and fix as well. So both the firm has both the types of access in the market. Zaki wishes to borrow rupee loan. Now Zaki wishes to borrow rupee loan. Rupee is in floating. Okay. And IB wishes to borrow in fixed rate. So forget about the rupee and Japanese yen. Focus on what Zaki wants. Zaki wants a floating rate loan and IB wants a fixed rate loan. Okay. The amount of loan required by both the firm is same at the current exchange rate. A financial institution may arrange a swap and requires 25 basis point as its commission. So this is a financial institution which can come in between them as an intermediary, and it can help them to do all the processing work. But it requires 25 basis point, 0.25% of the total loan amount as its commission. Gain, if any, is to be shared by the firms equally. Now what does that mean? See, Zaki wishes to borrow floating rate. That means Zaki is this. Okay, Zaki wishes to borrow at floating rate, and it is costing him, costing that company BPLR plus 2.5%. BPLR is also a floating rate. Okay, and IB wishes to borrow in at this. So you can clearly see that IB has to pay 2% if it goes directly in the market, in the bank, and borrow at fixed rate. Zaki will have to pay BPLR plus 2.5% if it goes to the bank and borrow the money. Now, there is another option where instead of directly going to the bank and borrowing the money at a desired rate, they can enter into a swap with each other in such a manner that IB will end up, it will not start, but end up with a fixed rate and lower than 2%. IB's wish is to borrow at fixed rate. It is costing it 2% from borrowing from the bank. But a swap arrangement can cost much lower than 2% at the fixed rate. So IB will obviously would want to go for the swap arrangement if IB can have a fixed rate loan at a lower than 2%. And similar is with the Zaki. Zaki can take a loan at BPLR plus 2.5%, but instead of directly taking up from the bank at floating rate, if it ends up in a swap arrangement with a floating rate at BPLR plus something less, then it is beneficial for the Zaki as well. So the question is, in this swap, if there is any gain, it will be shared by the firms equally. So what type of gain and how to calculate the possible gain? This is called as quality spread. Now focus on couple of things. Quality spread, it means the possible gain. Okay, how to calculate the possible gain? Sir, it's very simple. First of all, calculate the difference in floating rate of both the firms. It's BPLR plus 0.5 and BPLR plus 2.5. That means 2% is the difference between what the bank is charging to IB and what the bank is charging to Zaki for the floating rate. Okay, it's because of more or less the credit rating. IB's credit rating might be good, and that's why the bank is charging less to IB for the floating than Zaki. Okay, but when you consider the IB fixed rate, IB and Zaki's the difference of rate between IB's fixed rate and Zaki's fixed rate is only 0.25%. Can I say that? 2 and 2.25. So it is costing 0.25% higher to Zaki. Obviously, the credit rating of Zaki might be lower, and that's why no matter which type of rate it wants to borrow, whether it is floating or fixed, it is costing him on a higher side than IB. And IB is enjoying the advantage of having a good credit rating, or we can say comparative advantage. This comparative advantage is one word which is used normally in such type of swaps. Okay. Now, let me tell you one thing. IB is enjoying the advantage in both floating rate and fixed rate. This is called as absolute advantage. But IB has a comparative advantage in floating rate than fixed rate. How come? IB has more advantage in floating as compared to fixed rate. IB has only 0.25% of advantage in fixed, but it has 2% of advantage in floating. So this is called as comparative advantage. Now the two things that you need to understand is, first of all, absolute advantage, that is 2% and 0.25%. Both IB is enjoying absolute advantage in floating rate and fixed rate, because in both the rates IB is being charged at a lower interest rate by the banks. So yes, IB is enjoying the absolute advantage in fixed rate and floating rate. So it's better to write down like this. Absolute advantage. IB is enjoying absolute advantage in fixed and floating. Okay. Second thing, IB is enjoying comparative advantage. Means obviously it's an absolute advantage in fixed and floating, but when you compare the fixed and floating, which advantage is better? Floating, because it's giving more return to IB. Now the thing is, in whichever we can say that's okay. Now we'll just go step by step. So the difference between floating rate and the difference between fixed rate, and again the difference between the differences of fixed and floating rate is 1.75%. This is called as quality spread, or we can call it as possible gain. This much of the gain is possible to both the companies. But out of that gain, 0.25 will be taken by the institution, the intermediary. So let me just write down. Quality spread. First of all, we will calculate quality spread, which is called as the possible gain from the advantage from the swap agreement to both the companies is, or I will just write it like this. Quality spread is equal to difference in floating rate minus difference in fixed rate. So difference in floating rate is 2 and 0.25. that goes to 1.75%. Am I right? Out of that, 0.25 will be taken by the financial institution, and this 1.5 will be shared equally by both the companies. That means the net gain to both the parties should be 0.75%. What does that mean? Okay, so the result of this swap is IB will have a borrowing rate lower by 0.75%. IB will end up borrowing at its desired type of interest rate, but the cost will be lower by 0.75%. So let me just start this question in our notes with few things that I want to write. First of all, quality spread is the difference between floating minus difference between absolute difference, right? Fixed. So this is 2 minus 0.25, that's 1.75%. Possible gain less commission of the institute 0.25%, so 1.5%. In this, share of gain to IB to Zaki 0.75. What does that mean? It means that IB should be able to borrow at a fixed rate. It wants to borrow at a fixed rate, right? Let me just confirm once again. Zaki wishes to borrow at a floating rate. So Zaki's wish is to borrow at a floating rate, and IB wishes to borrow at fixed rate. Okay. But just understand one thing. If IB directly goes to the bank and borrow the loan at fixed rate, it will cost him 2%. Cost it 2%. And to Zaki, if it directly goes to borrow the floating rate loan, it will cost it BPLR plus 2.5%. Now, entering into a swap transaction is only profitable if the IB can borrow fixed rate loan, end up with a fixed rate loan of by lesser than 2%, at a lesser rate than 2%, and it will be 2% minus 0.75, because this will be the gain to IB in fixed rate borrowing under swap. Zaki's floating rate borrowing will be achieved, but at BPLR plus 2.5 less 0.75%. That means around 1.75%. So the net cost to IB will be 1.25, which is lesser than this much. To Zaki will be BPLR plus 1.75, which is lesser than this. So this much will be called as the gain to both the parties. Now understand one thing. Second condition. Swapping is possible only when a party having comparative and advantage in one type of rate wishes to borrow in another type. Example, let's say if the comparative advantage is in floating rate, but the company wishes to borrow in fixed rate, then only swapping is possible. Or if it has a comparative advantage in fixed rate and wishes to borrow in floating rate, then only it will the swapping is possible, and it's very much true. You can understand. See, out of all the 4 rates, the best rate for the Zaki to go with is the best rate for IB. Just a second. The best rate for IB to go with is floating rate of BPLR plus 0.5, because you can clearly see IB has a comparative advantage in floating. And if IB directly goes with the floating itself from the market, then there is no possibility of arbitrage. Then there is no possibility of swapping, because the lowest possible rate has been already taken by you directly from the bank. Then what we are going to do? The other parties will have no option. So if you want this, but you have an advantage on this, so what will happen? How the swap will happen? I will tell you. Since you want this now, but you have an advantage in this, we will make you believe, we will convince you to borrow the loan from bank at which you have a comparative advantage. Since you don't want that loan, you can swap that with us, and we will give you something that you want, which is fixed. Right? That's when the swapping is possible. You have a benefit in, let's say for example, I will tell you, you are a good relative of Ambani. Okay? And you can convince Ambani for anything. But the problem is you want to convince Tata. Right? But you want to convince Tata. Then only swapping is possible. I am on the other side. I want to convince Ambani. But I cannot. What I will do is, I will ask you to convince Ambani for me, or you will convince for yourself, okay, and you will swap that thing with me. What I will do, I will try to convince Tata and then swap that thing with you. Then the swapping is possible. But when the swapping is not possible, that you have a comparative advantage in convincing Ambani, and you want to convince Ambani, then the story is over. You wanted Ambani, you got Ambani, you have a benefit with the Ambani as well. You will get it easily. What I am going to do? I don't want to convince Tata. I can, but I don't want to. Understood? I also want to convince Ambani. You also want to convince Ambani. Acha, one more thing. You have a comparative advantage in convincing Ambani, and you want to convince Ambani. Story is over. Why you need my help then? No, there is no need for my help. Next thing. And I have a comparative advantage of over Tata, and I want to convince Tata. Why the hell we are going to meet? We can do what we want. Then there is no need for swapping. It is only when we cannot do what we want. So your need should be fulfilled by me, my need should be fulfilled by you. That's when the swapping is possible. So what is happening in this case is, you have an advantage in floating, but you want a fixed rate. So what I will do is, I will ask you to get the loan at floating because you have the advantage, and swap that with me. I will give you the fixed rate that you want. That's when the swapping is possible. Understood? Understood one thing? Okay. So in this case, exactly the same is happening. IB has an advantage in floating, but it wants a loan at fixed rate. And that's when the swapping will happen. Okay. So let's come to this point. I will just go to this, the potential gain. See, the interest rate differential and yen rate differential, or fixed and floating rate differential, is 1.75%. Huh? Am I right? Yes. And then 0.25 will be taken by the bank, and the balance will be 1.5%, which will be shared by both equally. That means the actual cost to IB should be 1.25%. Then only we can say that 0.75 is a gain to it, and BPLR plus 1.75%. See, if I can borrow directly from the market at fixed rate of 2%, and I can borrow at fixed rate in swapping but at 1.25%, can I say that the benefit is 0.75? Yes, sir. And this is the benefit of 0.75 to Zaki also. He wanted floating, he is getting floating, but at much lower than the direct market rate. Understand? This is the direct rate if you go to the bank, and this is a swap rate if you do some transactions in the swapping. So what will happen in reality, both of us, IB and Zaki, will take the exact opposite loan from the bank. IB wants fixed, but it will take floating rate loan, and it will swap with the Zaki. Zaki wants floating, it will take fixed rate loan from the bank, and it will swap with the IB. Now, how these transactions are going to happen? Let me explain that to you with a proper diagram. So these are the two banks, and these are the two companies, and one intermediary will be there, financial institution, who will take the. So these are the parties. Now understand, this is IB, this is Zaki. These are the banks for both of us, bank 1, bank 2, or the same bank also. This is the financial institution or dealer, you can say. Now what will happen? It's very simple. IB has a comparative advantage in floating rate loan, and he wants a fixed rate loan. So IB will take the floating rate loan. Whatever he wants, exactly opposite of that should be taken from the bank. So what is exactly going to happen? We will pay interest to the bank. How much? At a floating rate, because we have taken a floating rate loan. And Zaki wants floating rate loan, and he will take a fixed rate loan from the bank. So to the bank, respective parties will pay their own interest. So that's BPLR plus 0.5, and this is 2. Am I right? 2.5. This much we are going to pay to the banks. Now, just a second. One thing is also sure, that we are going to pay to the dealer. So dealer will also take his commission, right? And the total commission to the dealer should be point. Okay, this is better. 2.5. Understood? So 0.25% is the total commission to the dealer. Okay, what can be done is, both the parties will contribute equal contribution to financial institution, that is 0.25 divided by 2. So what will happen? Both of us will pay 0.25%, 0.125, 0.125. So this is how much we are going to pay. So Zaki will pay 0.125%, IB will pay 0.125%, financial institution will have its own 0.25%, and that's over for the financial institution. Now, what financial institution did is, he made all the arrangements. Now, we are going to exchange. So this is the major swapping part which is happening here. We will pay something to Zaki, we will receive something from Zaki, if I consider from the IB's point of view, and it's very easy to calculate. Understand one thing, that if you would have borrowed directly from the bank 2% at 2%, it would have cost you 2%, but now it's the net payment to you. The net payment by you should cost you only 1.25%. Only 1.25%, then only you can say 0.75% is my gain. So you can, if you look from the IB's point of view, IB has paid BPLR plus 0.5 to the bank. What he is going to do, he doesn't want floating. So the entire BPLR plus 0.5 will be received back from IB, from Zaki. So let's receive it back. This is very easy to find out. This is the first step. Now the only thing remaining is this. Now understand, from the IB's point of view, he paid this much and received it back. He paid this much and received it back. That means the BPLR position is now over. This is over with this. Now we paid in total 0.125. The outflow, the net outflow right now for IB is 0.125. How much should be the total outflow? 1.25. That's it. 1.25. We have already paid 0.125 to the dealer. How much is left? 1.125. So what will happen? 1.125 will be paid by IB to Zaki. That's it. This is the end of the story, and you can calculate each cash flow for each party. It will end up in exactly what we wanted. So let's do that first. Now understand, I will just mark red if I'm paying that, and I will just mark green if I'm receiving that, so that it's easy for us to do the calculation. So this is what I paid. I'm marking it as IB paid to the bank. This is what IB paid to the dealer. Okay. Now this is what IB paid to Zaki, and that's it. Now let's talk from the angle of receipt, and this is what we received from Zaki. That's it. We paid 3 items and received only once. Now, going back to the red part, consider from the Zaki's angle. Zaki paid this much to the bank, Zaki paid this much to the dealer, and Zaki paid this one to IB. And when it comes to receipt, Zaki received this much. Just do the total of all the outflows and inflows. Have a look. For IB, it is minus BPLR, since we have paid, plus 0.5. Then we paid 1.125 as well, minus 1.125. Then we received BPLR plus 0.5, and then we paid 0.125. Am I right? Writing all the 4 figures. So you can clearly see that this outflow is cancelled with this outflow, and the total is minus 1.25%, which is lower by 7. The direct bank rate was 2%, so I am at a gain of 0.75. The net cost to me is fixed. I wanted that, and it is lower by 0.75%. That's the gain to me, to IB. Now look from the Zaki's angle. Zaki paid 2.25%. Then he received 1.125%. Then he paid BPLR plus 0.5, and he also paid 0.125. Let's do the total of all this. So 2.25 plus 1.125 minus 1.125 minus, okay, plus 1 point. So it's 2.25 plus minus plus 1.125 minus 0.125. That's 1.25. It looks like this: minus 1.25 minus BPLR, open the bracket, minus 0.5. So it will look like minus BPLR minus 1.75. Now you take the negative sign outside the bracket, so it will be BPLR plus 1.75%. You can clearly see that if we would have directly gone to the bank, it would have cost us BPLR plus 2.25%. So again we are at a gain of 0.75. So gain to both the parties. This is not required in exam, or you can show it directly like this. And this presentation is absolutely valid. Absolutely valid. You just need to make sure that the total cost is, you have to do one more thing apart from this. You will have to show this. Sorry to say that, but you will have to show this. The net outflow should be this. This should be visible, that 1.25 is the total cost to IB, and BPLR plus 1.75 is the total cost to Zaki. Because we want to prove that it is costing us lesser than directly going in the market. So swap is costing us lesser than directly going into the market. That's a gain of 0.75%. And this is very easy to draw. Very easy to draw. It's very simple. First of all, first step, take the opposite loan from the bank. Whatever we want, take the opposite loan from the bank. Second step, pay the financial institution equally or whatever you have decided. Okay, 60-40, then 60-40 also. If you want to share the gain in 60-40, pay the commission in 60-40 as well. Okay, once you paid this much, you didn't want the floating rate. Third step, you paid the floating, receive it back. The only thing left will be this much, which you have to do the calculation, where you have to do the calculation. Otherwise, everything is sorted. Okay. So this is how the question has presented. It's very simple, sir. BPLR plus 0.5. Just let me show you the same that we did. Yeah, see, BPLR plus 5, BPLR plus 5, then 1.125, 1.125. The only difference is the outflow has been showed positive here and presented in positive figure, and the inflow has been presented in a negative figure in this case. We have given a different sign there. That's it. So again, BPLR plus 0.5 and 0.125 and 0.125. In this case also you will see, see, 2.25, 2.25, then BPLR plus 0.5, this is BPLR plus 0.5, then 1.125, this is 1.125, then lastly 0.125, this is 0.125. So everything is according to the institute. Also, please make sure this is 1.25. The direct rate would have been 2% in this case, and BPLR plus 2.25 in this case. So swap is always beneficial than the direct market rate. Candidates can also present the above swap arrangement in a different manner. In such case, they should be awarded due marks provided the solution ended up in a correct answer. So this should be the final answer. This should be visible. It is not visible with the diagram. So diagram is just for the purpose of making sure that you are doing the correct calculation and making it easy. Then you have to write it in equation and end up with an answer of 1.25 and this one. Got it? Now, summary is that first of all, swapping is possible only when a party having a comparative advantage in one type of rate wishes to borrow the other type of rate. So if you have a comparative advantage in floating, you should wish to borrow fixed. If you have an advantage in fixed, you should wish to borrow floating. So opposite should be the opposite should be the story. Now what happened in question number 30? Let's come to question number 30 and find out the comparative advantage. Which party has comparative advantage in which rate? You can clearly see that if we calculate the difference, 0.25 is the difference of fixed rate and 2% is the difference of floating rate. Again, 1.75 is the difference, exactly similar to what we have seen in the previous question. So 1.75% is the possible gain, but still the swapping is not possible in this question. Why? I will tell you. Understand that IM is having a comparative advantage in floating rate, right? IM is having comparative advantage in floating rate, then he should wish to borrow in fix. Now, IM wishes to borrow floating rate. What is happening here? IM is wishing to borrow in a rate which is already a comparative advantage to him. He has a comparative advantage with Ambani and he wants to convince the Ambani. Then why the hell he will need my help, the other party's help or the financial institution's help? You can do it what you want. Then why you need the swap arrangement? Swap arrangement is not at all possible, sir, in this case. Although institute has done some mathematical calculation, not the logical one, and then they showed that yes, the possibility is there for the swapping, but trust me, swapping is not possible. They just derived the final rate, that if you directly go to the market, this will be the rate, gain should be this much, so swap should be this much. You can try, you will not come to this point that LIBOR is the only net interest for the IM and 3.75 is the only net interest to the JI. You try your calculations, you will not come to this point because of the comparative advantage. It's very simple, sir. That's what I'm saying. If you have a comparative advantage over Ambani and you want to convince Ambani itself, then there is no need for the other parties. It should be opposite. That's why the swap is not possible. This was the wrong question asked in the exam. I will tell you, it was in May 2019, old syllabus. Understand, it was asked in exam in May 2019. Then it was given again in the mock test paper of 21, 21 and 21. You can see 21, 21 and 21. So it is repeated. That means the first time it was asked in the May 2019 old syllabus where the question was wrong. After that, they made some correction and asked again in November 2020. And that was the correct question. So forget about this one. I took it in the compiler because I wanted to explain that this is how this can happen in your exam also. So whenever the question is wrong, it seems wrong, make sure you are solving it to the maximum possible with whatever notes that you want to give. But don't skip the question. If you don't write anything in the question, you will not get the marks. Okay, so the answer is little wrong in this. They have said that yes, it is possible, but it's not possible. You can try by yourself. Now comes the question number 32. It is again an interesting question. We'll love it. So again, this is going to be an interesting question. It's very much similar to the previous question, but little different in terms of some specifications. Have a look. A Limited is considering 50 crores 3 years interest rate swap. The company is interested in borrowing at floating rate. However, due to its good credit rating, it has a comparative advantage over lower rated company in fixed rate market. That is what we wanted. I told you that the what we can say is swapping is possible when we have a comparative advantage in one market, that is fixed rate in this case, and we want to borrow in other market which is floating rate. So it is possible in this question. It can borrow at a fixed rate of 6.25 and a floating rate of MIBOR plus 0.75. So A Limited 6.25 and MIBOR plus 0.75. So fixed and floating rate. Presently, MIBOR is 5.25%, but it is expected to change in 6 months' time due to political situation in the country. X Limited, the other company, this was A Limited, now this is an X Limited. An intermediary bank agreed to arrange a swap. So this is intermediary, financial institution, dealer we can say. Okay. The bank will offset the swap risk with a country B Limited. Counterparty B Limited, a comparative lower credit rated company. So the credit rating of this company is not that good, which could borrow at a fixed rate of 7.25. You can see that. And MIBOR plus 1.25. So first of all, first condition is fulfilled, that the comparative advantage market and the market in which we want to borrow the money should be different. Then let's take the difference between fixed rate, which comes to 1% in this case, and the difference between floating rate comes to 0.50%. So the total swap that is possible is 0.50%. So this is the quality spread, or we can say the possible gain from all the swap. Okay. We are here right now. X Limited would charge 12 lakh rupees per year as its fee from each party. From each party, the commission amount will be 12 lakh for X Limited. Just understand, this is huge. In the previous question, it was 0.25%, which would have paid from this. But now this is given in terms of rupees. Mr. Finn, the CFO of A Limited, this company, desires that A Limited should receive 60% of any arbitrage saving. 60% of this is 0.30% and 40% is 0.20%. So A Limited will keep a gain of 0.30 and B Limited will keep a gain of 0.20. Okay. Before payment of 12 lakh rupees of the fees from the swap, as A Limited enjoying higher credit rating. Because of the higher credit rating, A Limited is like, I need 60% of the gain, man. Any fees paid to the bank are tax allowable. The applicable tax rate is 30%. So 12 lakh after tax, if you want to calculate 12 lakh into 0.7%, 8,40,000 something. Yeah, right. 9 lakh. Yeah, 8,40,000. Evaluate whether the proposal is beneficial for both the parties or not. Yes, sir, it is beneficial for both the parties. The first answer is very easy. A limited, B limited, difference between fixed rate is 1%, difference in the floating rate is 0.5%, and the possible gain is 0.50% from the swap proposal. Okay, so that's the first part of the question. Then, assuming that MIBOR was to increase, evaluate whether the proposal is beneficial for both the parties or not. So we have to evaluate. It is not beneficial because of one reason. Prima facie, it seems that the swapping is possible, but it is not beneficial because of some other reason. Have a look. Let's take the first party, A Limited. Now, saving on the amount of loan, 50 crore into 0.50%. This is the total saving to both the parties, which is 25 lakh. Now, understand that A Limited wants to keep 60% of the saving, which comes to 15 lakh. Clear? Post tax benefit, that means he is going to pay tax on this because this is a profit. 15 lakh is a profit. We will pay tax on this. So post tax benefit is 10 lakh 50,000. Charges payable to X Limited. It should be charges. I will make the correction later on. To X Limited is 12 lakh and post tax it is 8 lakh 40,000. So instead of writing this much, they should have simply wrote like this. The share in profit is 15 lakh. Then 12 lakh rupees will be the expense. 3 lakh is the net profit. Tax on this is 30%, which is 90,000. And the balance is 2 lakh 10,000. This is the simplest way instead of confusing. So the net benefit to party A is 2 lakh 10,000. Let's talk about the other party. Evaluation from the point of view of B Limited. It's very simple, sir. Out of this 25 lakh, 40% will be kept by B Limited. So 10 lakh gain, but 12 lakh rupees will be his fees. So the loss is 2 lakh into 30%. So 70% will be left, that is 1 lakh 40,000. So the loss to B is 1 lakh 40,000. It was the simplest of the possible question, right? Thus the proposal of swap will leave B Limited in loss of 1 lakh 40,000. Hence the proposal is not beneficial for all the parties at all. It is beneficial for the single party but not for B Limited. And if it is not beneficial for B Limited, the swap will not be possible. Why it is not possible? Because A Limited would agree, B Limited would not agree, and if this party does not agree, then the entire swap agreement will have to be thrashed out. So what will happen? The charges of beneficiary, the charges of intermediary has to be reduced. That's what should be done. And in fact, out of 24 lakh rupees of the charges, see, you can see 12 lakh and 12 lakh, he is charging 24 lakhs to both the parties. So my view is, out of this 24 lakh, 60-40 should be done. So 60%, that means he should charge 14 lakh 40,000 to A Limited, and the balance of 9 lakh 60,000 to B Limited. So what will happen, I will tell you. For A Limited, the profit is 15, the charges are 14.4, the balance is 0.6. For B Limited, the profit is 10, the share in the profits, and the charges are 9.6, the balance is 0.40. So after tax, it will cost them 42,000 of the gain and 28,000 of the gain. So both the parties will have some benefit. But what is happening in this case is all the benefit is taken over by A Limited itself. Nothing has been given to B Limited. If you do the total, 2 lakh 10,000 and 1 lakh 40,000, the total will come to somewhere 70,000. 70 into 70%, no, 70,000 is okay. I think this is also coming to 70,000. So the net benefit to all of the parties is 70,000. But that's what is happening wrong here. Instead of equally or distributing the benefits and the charges in 60-40, what they have done is he has taken the gain of 60% but the charges of 50% only. That's where the entire thing went wrong. Otherwise, possibilities are there. The only obstacle in this entire agreement is the charges of Mr. Intermediary. Okay, now coming over to the second part of the question, let's read that first. assuming that MIBOR was to increase to 5.75% immediately after political crisis is over and shall remain constant for the entire period of swap. What does that mean? It means that today the MIBOR is 5.25% when we are entering into a swap agreement, but understand, but it is expected to change in 6 months due to political situation. So after 6 months we were exactly expecting that the MIBOR will change, and that happened in reality. After 6 months, when the political crisis got over, the MIBOR increased to 0.5, increased by 0.5% to 5.75. Okay, so it shall look like this. If you draw a timeline, na? So 1 2 and 1 2 3. So this is 0 1 2 3 4 5 6. What does that mean? Half yearly period, sir. 1 year, 2 year and 3 year. Okay, the interest rate is MIBOR is 5.25 today, and we said that right now the political crisis is going on, and after 6 months the political crisis is expected to get over, and at that time the MIBOR will change, and it actually changed in the second part of the question to 5.75. Got it? I hope I'm right. Okay, now, and our loan rate was this much. Immediately after the political crisis is over and shall remain constant for the entire period of swap. That means once it has increased to 5.75, it will remain for the entire 3 years period. Evaluate the present value of savings from the swap for A Limited. How much was the saving for A Limited? Sir, total saving was 25 lakh, out of which 60% was kept by A Limited, which was 15 lakhs. But that was per annum, and now we have interest payment semi-annually. So if 15 lakh is for per annum, see, if 15 lakh is for per annum, can I say 7.5 lakhs will be the saving every 6 months to A Limited? See, in the previous part itself, the total saving was 0.5% saving on the amount of loan. 50 crore into 0.50%, that's 25 lakh. Out of that 25 lakh, 60% was the share of A Limited, which is 15 lakhs, but that is per annum. All these rates are per annum, the difference is per annum, the potential saving is also per annum. But if we are making a payment for semi-annually, so 15 lakh divided by 2 comes to 7 lakh 50,000. That's going to be the savings every year in interest. And understand that the interest rate applicable for this is not this one. It is decided at the beginning. So at this rate you are going to discount 7.5 if you have to. But let me just finish it first. What exactly will be the rate? I will just tell you. It will not be the MIBOR only. See. Yeah. Now we have to calculate the present value. Okay. My question to you is present value. My question to you is what is exactly the cost of floating rate or rate to you? What should be the discounting rate? Very simple, sir. If you would have directly purchased or borrowed the money A Limited, if you would have directly borrowed the money from the bank, it would have cost you MIBOR plus 0.75. But please understand, this is not the actual cost that we are going to bear. We will be paying something lesser than this. See, the total saving is 50%. Understand, and out of that 60% of the saving is kept by us, that is 0.30. Can I say that? Out of 0.50, 60% means 0.30% should be the saving to me under swap. If I directly go to the market, it will cost me MIBOR plus 0.75, and if what will be the cost to me under swap, it should be lesser than 0.30, and then only I can say that this is my benefit. So if you will do the calculation, it will come to MIBOR plus 0.45, 0.3% less than this rate. So the cost to me for all this borrowing is MIBOR plus 0.45%, and the MIBORs are here. These are the MIBORs. So for present value annuity, or sorry, for the present value factor, the rates will be MIBOR plus 0.45, not 0.75. First of all, this is the cost that you will have to bear. So if you will add 0.45 in each of them, it will be 5.70, 6.20, 25 and 20. Yeah, 6.20, 6.20, 6.20, 6.20. Okay. Now understand that this is going to be the rate to discount 7.5 lakh. 7.5 lakh is the saving for every 6 month. True? But these are the rates per annum, on a per annum basis. So we have to convert the rate also into 6 months rate. So it will be 2.85, 3.10, 3.10, 3.10, 3.10, 3.10. So all the rates will be this. So these are the rates that will be applicable to discounts the savings. We have to calculate the present value of all the savings, 6 months payment. That's why we have taken 7.5 lakhs. Now understand the calculation on the next page. See, 6 half yearly period, 6 months. Total saving is 7,50,000 for 6 months, 15 lakhs for 1 year, and the discounting rates are like this. For first year, it is 5.7%, because for the first 6 months, the MIBOR was lower, and after 6 months, the MIBOR increased by 0.5%. Again, this is calculated as 5.25 plus 0.45. This is the swap rate that was applicable to us, and this is 5.75 plus 0.45 after the increase. Now, although they have given per annum rate here, but this discounting rate is calculated as 1 divided by 1.0285, 0.972. Okay. Now, how will you calculate this discounting rate? 0.941. This should be for the second period. Half of 6.2 is 1 divided by 1.031 to the power 2. So when you keep it to the power 2, you will get 0.941, 2 times discounting with 3.1%. However, I am not satisfied with the answer. Because of that, I will tell you why. So first of all, let me just complete this calculation. 6.2. Now how to calculate this 0.912? It's very simple, sir. 1 divided by 1.031 to the power 3. Now then to the power 4, 5, 6, 7. Sorry, 4, 5, 6. That's it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. This is how you are going to calculate the discounting factors. Although they have given it as in a per annum, but the calculations are correct. But the main problem is that what is happening is that for the first period, the discounting rate was according to 2.85. But what is happening to this cash flow? They are discounting it with 3.1 and then 3.1 for both the 6 months. Let me just write it properly. For this for this period and for this period, 3.1 and 3.1, which I think should not be the case. It should be like every cash flow which will go through this 6 months should be discounted with 2.85%, because at that time the rate was 2.85%. These are the rates after the 6 months. Now after this period, 6.2 was discovered or 5.75 was discovered. So till this point only the cash flow should be discounted with 3.1%, but before this it should be discounted with 2.85. Doesn't matter which cash flow it is, whether this is the cash flow, this is. But what institute has done is, for this cash flow they have taken 3.1 and 3.1 in the first period also. For this one they have taken 3.1, 3.1 and then 3.1. So for all the periods, all the other cash flows, they have taken 3.1% as a discounting rate for the first 6 months. I'm little not satisfied with this, but if the similar question comes in exam, then follow what institute has done for the purpose of marks. So now you can easily calculate that 7,50,000 you are going to save every 6 months. These are going to be the discounting rate. And in terms of present value, you are saving 40,50,750 for 3 years. 40, 50, 750 for 3 years. So I can easily say that every year's average cost is 1350, 250, and you have to pay only 12 lakh rupees per year. So still it is beneficial for you, because we have not considered 12 lakh rupees in 7 lakh 50,000. We have to reduce that cost, right? The interest rate swap is estimated to produce interest rate savings with a present value of this much, borrowing this much relative to borrowing floating rate directly. What does that mean? Since we have not borrowed the money directly at a floating rate and went for the swap arrangement, this has benefited us over a period of 3 years. The present value of those saving is 40,50,750. However, we have to pay 12 lakh rupees each year for this saving. So that 12 lakh into 3, we can say 36 lakhs should be deducted from this, and still it is beneficial for us. 40, 50, 750. So this is the main answer. I hope you understood it. It's just that whatever the savings that you are having because of the swaps and not directly going to the bank to borrow money, calculate the present value of that on the given market rate. Simple enough. Okay, they have made some calculations here. I have not read this, and it is not at all required. First of all, the only thing which was required is this 0.45, adding 0.45. It means that 0.3 will be our saving. So we are going to add 0.45 in the MIBOR. So it will be 5.70 for the first 6 months and then 6.20 for the rest of the period. After that, they again calculated interest savings of 7,50,000. Instead of all this calculation, they should straight away take 15 lakh and divided by 2. And then the rest of the calculations have been explained. Good, sir. Good. Question number 33 is going to be the next question now. Let's have a look. A financial institution has entered into an interest rate swap with a company X. Under the terms of the swap, it receives who? The financial institution is going to receive 10% per annum fix and pays a 6-month LIBOR. So please understand, on a principal of $10 million for 5 years. Okay. And that is 6 months LIBOR. Payments are made every 6 months. So please understand till this point. It's very necessary, important. These are, let's say, 5 years. One, two, three, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then half yearly. Okay. So what was happening? You are a financial institution and you have entered into a swap agreement with other party in which he is going to pay you 10% per annum and you will be paying LIBOR to him. Am I right? LIBOR. Okay. So receive, pay, gain or loss, whatever, principal and gain. Again, understand what was happening for the first 5 payments. 10% you will receive here. You will pay LIBOR here. 10% you will receive here. You will pay LIBOR. 10 LIBOR. 10 LIBOR. Now 10 LIBOR. Understand what happened next. Everything went very perfectly till this point. But when we came to this third year end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can say that half of the settlement is done, half period of the swap is completed, half is pending. Now when we are standing at this date, so logically what should happen? We should receive 10% and we will pay LIBOR. But the other party who was paying 10% to us defaulted on this date. He didn't pay 10% and we also obviously didn't pay LIBOR. But he defaulted on the next payments as well. Means he didn't pay from that date onwards. So obviously there will be some profit or loss. If there is a gain on this part and if there has to be a gain on the future also, we have lost that gain because of the default of the party. Now understand the question. Suppose company X defaults on the 6th payment date, that means the end of the year 3, when the interest rate with semi-annual compounding is 8% per annum for all the maturities. Right now the interest rate is 8%. Understand, it is 8% on this date. For all the maturities it will be 8%. But understand, the payment that you have to make here depends upon the LIBOR of the previous payment date. So when you are making a payment here, now this LIBOR is already calculated at this point. So today's LIBOR is applicable for the next 6 months. So this LIBOR is of this date. So this LIBOR, the LIBOR here would have been of this date. Now understand. What is the loss to the financial institution? Assume that the 6 months LIBOR was 9% per annum halfway through year 3. So halfway through year 3 is this point and it was 9% at this point. This means that we were supposed to receive 10% on this date and pay 9% on this date. It depends upon the previous date, right? So there was a planned profit of 1%. The notional planned gain of 1%. The notional principal was how much? $10 million. So the principal amount is $10 million. So how much will be the total gain? Please understand. This is a per annum rate. This is a per annum rate. You are making a 6 monthly settlement. This is a per annum gain. So when you will calculate the amount, it has to be for 6 months. So 10 million into 1% is 1 lakh into 1 by 2 for 6 months. So this will be $50,000. This was the profit that we were about to make, but we didn't make it because we lost it because of the default by the other party. He didn't pay us 10%, we didn't pay him 9%, we lost this 1% of the gain. That means we lost this $50,000. And the same happened for all the future maturities, but at that time the rate was 8%. So understand, we were about to receive 10% for all the future dates and pay 8% now. So the planned profit was also, we can say the profit that we missed is 2%. This is our loss. When you calculate it on 10 million, it will come to, let's say, 10 million into 2%, 2 lakhs divided by 2 because of the 6 months. So it will be 1 lakh. So this is what we have lost because of the default of the other party. Now we have to calculate the present value. 50,000. We are standing at this date. Please understand, at the end of the year 3, we cannot go back. So we are standing here, 50,000 is already at today's price. So it will be multiplied by 1. But then for rest of the 1 lakh or $1 lakh, you have to discount it to calculate the present value. And the discount rate should be the ongoing market rate, which is 8%. So you are again going to discount this with 4% half yearly. Have a look on the final answer now. See, floating rate payment at 0th point, that means this is the 3rd year end, was 9%. This was your payment, but fixed receipt was 10%. You were about to gain by 1%, which you actually lost. This is called as loss of a profit due to default. That will come to 50,000, then 1 lakh, 1 lakh, 1 lakh, 1 lakh. Now, what are you going to do? 50,000 is the today's value, so that's why multiplied by 1. But rest of the figures you have to discount it by 4% because 8% was the going rate. For 6 months it is going to be 4%. Discount this and you have the present value. So this is the loss in terms of present value. $4,12,990. We would have earned this much, we would have gained this much because of this swap if the party would not have defaulted. And that's what the drawback of the interest rate swap is for the forward rate agreement, also for the interest rate swap also, because these are over the counter market traded. So there is no margin required in this case, and that's why there are chances that the parties can default if there is a loss. So that was happening. See, understand from the point of view of the other company. If the rate was 9% throughout, he was losing money every 6 months. And at the end of this third year, he decided to default because he cannot afford to lose it further. See, and that's what his loss has become our loss of profit. Our loss of profit. We didn't lose actually, but we lost the profit that we would have earned. Got it? Okay, sir. Last question. After that, there are 2 more questions. Okay, have a look on this. Euro loan bank has a differential advantage in issuing variable rate loan. Variable, floating. Variable, which changes. Floating rate is something which changes, but wishes to avoid the income risk associated with such loan. But see, when this word but is included, that means there is a possibility of swap gain, because he is having an advantage in the floating rate, but he wants to avoid the income risk associated with such loan. That means he wants to shift to fixed rate. He has an advantage in floating, he wants to shift in fixed. Yes, possible. The gain is possible. Swap is possible. Currently, bank has a portfolio of $25 million euro loans with prime lending rate with PLR plus 150 basis point. So it's as good as 1.5%. Reset monthly PLR is currently 4%. Monthly PLR. Currently 4%, so it's actually 5.5%. If you calculate the current rate, it's 5.5%. 4 plus 1.5. Okay. IB, this is another party. An investment bank has arranged for euro loan to swap into a fixed rate payment of 6.5. See, now this is a very interesting question, because in this case we are not the borrower, we are the investors, or we can say depositors or lenders. So we are earning this much of the interest right now. So let's focus on this. Since we are the investors, or we can say lender right now, the risk to us is the fall in the interest rate. And in fact, we have a portfolio of a floating rate with PLR plus 1.50%. What does that mean? It means that we are earning this much because we have lent the money to someone else, that someone else or the other party is giving us this much of the money. So we are earning an interest at a floating rate, but we are scared of falling interest rate. So if the LIBOR or the floating rate falls, we will receive lesser interest income. And that's what we want to avoid. We want to make sure that the interest income is fixed for the next period, and then it doesn't matter where the floating rates are going. According to the bank, floating rate is about to fall, and due to this, the fall in interest rate will lead to the fall in the income that they are going to receive because of the floating rate associated with the amount. Now, what will happen in swapping? In swapping, we will give the floating rate and receive the fixed rate. So this is an investment bank, this is to them we have given the loan, okay, and we are receiving floating. So under the swap, what will happen? We will pay floating because we have received floating from them. We are the investor, we will receive interest, we will pay that to them, and we will receive fixed. So we want to receive fixed amount every year or every 6 months, and we are ready to pay whatever the floating are. Why we are ready to pay floating? Because we know that the interest rates are going to go down. So the more it will fall, the lesser will be our floating payment. The lesser will be the income received from the investors and or from the borrowers, and then lesser will be the payment, and we will receive the fixed amount. Now understand what the question is saying. IB, an investment bank, has arranged the euro loan to swap into a fixed rate payment of 6.5%. So I think I will just clarify this with a proper diagram so that it becomes very easy for you to calculate. So these are the borrowers and this is the bank, and this is what we are. We are this in the company in this question. So we are going to receive floating rate of PLR plus 1.5%, right? And we are scared of this thing that the rise interest rate will go down and we will receive lesser amount every year from the borrowers. So we arranged a swap agreement with the party. So there is another party, IB, who is ready to do the swap arrangement with us. In that, what will happen? Whatever we are going to receive from the borrowers, we will pay it back to IB. So PLR plus 1.5 will be paid back to IB, and IB is ready to pay 6.5% to us fixed. Now in this case, what might be the situation? We are scared of the falling interest rate, and IB might be thinking that the interest rates are going to rise. Since interest rates are going to rise, he is going to receive more income according to him, and according to him he is going to pay lesser amount. So both parties have opposite view. Okay, now okay, if euro loan agrees to this, that means euro loan is the bank, what amount of interest is received and given in the first month? What will be the swap arrangement in the first month? In the first month, and this is monthly or 6 monthly, let me just calculate. It is monthly, not 6 monthly, and the total amount is 25 million euros. Now understand that the rate is 4% right now, so the total will go to 5.5%. This is what you will pay to IB, and this is what you will receive from IB. So 25 million euro multiplied by this much into 1 by 12, so that you can convert the annual payment into monthly. Understand? 25 million euros into 5.5% divided by 12. This is what you will pay to IB, because you promised him to pay the floating amount which you had received from the borrower, let's say. Then what amount he will receive, Euro Bank will receive, it's fixed 6.5%. So 25 million, 6.5% divided by 12, we are going to receive from IB for the first month. Now second part, further assume that PLR increased by 200 basis point. If the PLR increases by 200 basis point, what will happen, sir? PLR increases by 200 basis point, 2 plus 1.5, sorry, increases means right now it is 4, it will become 6. So 6 plus 1.5, that means 7.5% we will have to pay, and 6.5% we will receive. There will be a loss. Why loss? Because we were expecting a fall in the PLR, and actually the PLR went up, and that's why we will be in a loss. So see, 7.5%, can you calculate this? 7.5% is nothing but 4 plus 2, 6% plus 1.5% fixed. So that was 7.5 you are going to pay. 7.5%, 25 million into 7.5 divided by 12. This is what we will be paying the next month and receiving the same thing, because we have agreed on this fixed payment. So the receipt every month will be fixed to 135,416 at 6.5%, but the payment every month will vary. In the first month it was like this. So if I just make it clear to you, in the first month we paid 5.5 and received 6.5. In the next month we paid 7.5 and received 6.5. So there was a profit of 1% here, I think, yeah, and there was a loss of 1% here, and it will keep on changing. So the floating rate will keep on changing. So that's what the question was asking. It was very, very easy. RTP November 2011. Okay, sir, we have finished with this. One more question is left in the interest rate swaps. Let me just go through that question that we had skipped earlier because it was on the swapping. Which was the question? Let me just check it in the concept sheet. Yeah, this is question number 17, swapping housing loan. So it is different kind of a swapping housing loan, question number 17. Let's read that question. This is an interesting question, not that difficult, please understand, not that difficult. It's just a present value item that we are going to do in this. You have a housing loan with one of India's top housing finance companies. You have taken a loan from the company. Housing loan. The amount outstanding today is 189,540. This is what you have, the principal amount outstanding. You have now paid an installment. Okay, now you have paid an installment. Your next installment falls due a year later. 189,540. 1 year after this, you will have to make a payment. There are 5 more installments to go, each being 50,000. 2, 3, 4, 5. Every installment will be of 50,000. Okay. Now, can we calculate the interest rate? Yes, sir, it is possible. Since 189,540 is the total principal outstanding and 50,000 is the annuity, we can easily calculate the interest rate by interpolation or IRR method. Let's go ahead. Another housing finance company has offered to take over this loan on a 7-year repayment basis. They are saying that there is another company who entered into picture and they came to you. They said that we will take this loan for you. We will make the payment to the bank. You don't have to do that. But you make us the payment for 7 years. So we are increasing your installments, or we can say we are increasing your duration by 2 more years for the same principal amount. So your loan of 189,540 will become our loan. We will make the payment to this bank for the next 5 years, which is 50,000. But now you pay us every year for the next 7 years, not 5 but 7 years. Okay, you will be required to pay 36,408 in this case. That's a pretty good question, man. Question number 17. So the right now one, how much? 89,540. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Every year original EMI is 50,000. Okay. But the other bank is saying that you forget about the loan with that bank. We will make the payment to the other bank. And you pay us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7 in 7 installments, right? And that will be 36,408. So you pay us 36,408. Pretty good question. Okay, so as good as 189,540. Okay, what else is given in this question? You will be required to pay with the first installment falling a year later at the same time. The processing fee is 3% of the amount taken over. So apart from that, you will be required to pay 3% extra today itself. That's the cost to you, man. That's around 5686.20. And what else? For swapping, you will have to pay 12,000 rupees to the first company. So again, this is a loss to you. See, you will be paying 5686 to the second company who is giving you the loan of 7 years. So this is a loss. Again, 12,000 rupees is to be paid to the first company because you want to shift the loan to the other company. Okay, so this is your total cost. So today the outflow is 17,686.20. Okay, What exactly the question wants? Should you swap the loan? Should you swap the loan? How will you decide? The present value annuity factor of 10% is given to you. Present value annuity factor of 8% is also given to you. What are you going to do? It's very simple, sir. Find out the interest rate in both. Find out the interest rate right now, whatever you are paying, and the interest rate in this plus this cost. Interest rate in this plus this cost. Then you can decide it easily. 3% to exactly cost you are paying. So we have to do the IRR method in order to calculate the interest rate in this. And the concept is very simple, sir. First, present value of annuity is equal to annuity into present value annuity factor. Okay. Then that is for a rate at 5 years. In this case, it's 5 years. So 189,540 is equal to 50,000 into present value annuity factor. So it comes to 3.7908 is equal to present value annuity factor at R for 5 years. Now you have to find out a rate which is the total of the present value factor for the 5 years, of which is 3.7908. And if you remember, it's the 10%. I can easily calculate that. You have been given with the same here, 3.791. So if you round it off to 3 decimals, it is 3.791. Now you tell me, which is the rate? It's directly given in the question. At 10% for 5 years, the annuity factor is 3.791. So the interest rate that you are paying in this loan right now is 10%. Okay. Now what's happening in the second part? The question is, should you swap the loan? And in the second part, you can see that 36,408 is the installment for 189,540. So if the bank will give you this much of the money, just imagine that bank will give you this much of the money, 189,540, and for that purpose they are charging 36,408, right? But if you have to pay this much of the expenses, what will happen? What happens practically is, instead of giving this much of the loan, bank will give you the loan by deducting these expenses. So you will receive lesser amount of loan. What will happen? You will receive 189,540 minus and minus both these expenses, that is 17,686. So how much amount you will receive? It's like 171,854, but still you will pay the same amount of EMI. Understood? You cannot say that since you are paying us lesser amount of loan, you will charge lesser amount of in EMI. The EMI will not reduce. EMI is calculated on the basic loan value 189,540. Let's take it this way, that we will give you 189,540 and then you start paying 36,408. Also you pay us this much of the processing charges today itself. So out of that 189,540, you will pay me 17,686. That means automatically we will deduct, we will pay you the lesser amount of loan itself. Now what is happening? You are paying the 36,408 of the EMI, the same EMI which was applicable for 189, now for 171. Now there is the problem. Had there been no processing charges and all these charges, you would have paid 36,408 for 189,540. Have a look. You can clearly see that the new interest rate for 189,540 at 36,408. This is annuity. This is present value. The present value annuity factor is coming to 5.206, which is matching with this. That means the new rate of interest is 8%. Isn't it good? Yes, sir, it's good. Since at present you are paying 10% interest, in the new loan you will be paying only 8%. But that is only when there are no charges. There are no charges of 12,000 and 3% of the amount taken over, right? But when you include the charges, what will happen? You will receive lesser amount of loan if they would have paid you. So this is going to be the cash calculation now. 189,540 minus 12,000 minus 5686. So the same amount of EMI is calculated at a lesser amount of loan. And now you calculate the interest rate. You can easily calculate the interest rate by first taking, let's say, 10% and then taking 11%, then interpolating both of them, and the answer will be 10.947. I'm not doing the interpolation now. We have seen lots of questions. So the IRR will come to 10.947%. So practically this is happening. Right now you are paying 10%. The new interest rate looks like 8%, but it is actually 10.947%. And the difference of 2.947 is all because of those two charges, 17,000 total. This 12,000 and 5686, 17,686. Since interest rates on existing loan is 10% while proposed loan is this much, by deducting the expenses, is 10.947%, hence proposed loan is more expensive. It is not advisable to swap. And this happens in the practical life, I tell you. They will show you this calculation and then the hidden charges will be the processing one. So what will happen? Ultimately, it's costing you more, na man. 0.947% you are paying more, and they will show you that you are saving 2%. Make sure that you are aware of this. This is called as swapping. This is also a part of swapping. Swapping the loan. So basically, you are swapping the bank. Right now, the loan is with this bank for 5 years. Then the loan will be with this bank for 7 years. And then they are saying that this bank is saying that you are paying 10% there, you will pay only 8% here. That's the processing charges, please pay us. That will cost you 10.947%, man. That's what you need to consider. That's it. Okay. So one question is left now. All the questions from the interest rate risk management is over. One question from the derivatives chapter is left, and that's very easy. Let's finish it as soon as possible. Yeah, this one. The last question, question number 67. Can we read it? Understand that till now you have been solving the questions on the interest rate swaps. Now in this question there is a different kind of a swapping, but it is a swapping. So you will be paying something and receiving something. TMC Holding Limited, this is from the derivatives chapter, has a portfolio of shares of diversified companies valued at 400 crore. You have an investment of 400 crore, enters into a swap arrangement with non-bank on the terms that it will get 1.15% quarterly on notional principal of 400 crore in exchange of return on the portfolio, which is exactly tracking the Sensex, which is presently 21,600. So understand the situation. We are TMC Holding. We have invested in the market of 400 crore. Okay. And we have invested in such a manner that our return is exactly equal to the return of the Sensex. So our portfolio is exactly tracking the Sensex. So whatever the return of the Sensex is, will be the return of our 400 crore. Now, we have entered into a swap arrangement. Swap arrangement. Let's say for example, 2% is the return for Sensex, then 2% will be the return for our portfolio. Okay. So we have entered into a swap arrangement, or let me just clear few things. So whatever will be the return of Sensex in percentage will be the return in percentage on 400 crore. Okay. Now TMC Holding has entered into a swap arrangement with non-bank, in which what is going to happen? I will just show you how the swap thing is going to work. We will pay non-bank this return that we are earning on our portfolio, and we will receive a fixed amount of 1.15% on 400 crore quarterly. 1.15% quarterly on notional principal of 400 crore. So can you just explain me why TMC Holding is giving up his return for the fixed return of 1.15%? First of all, this is going to be floating return. Every quarter the Sensex return will change, which will mean that the return on the 400 crore will change. And we are, whatever the return will be, we will pay it back to non-bank, and every quarter we are going to get 1.15% on 400 crore. So the receipt is fixed, 1.15%. It's fixed. But the payment is different every quarter. Why we are doing it? What might be the reason? It's very simple, sir. We are expecting that the Sensex values will fall. We are the investor. I understand. We are the investor. Investor always believe that the interest rate will go down, and this is the risk. In this case, Sensex will go down. If the Sensex goes down, there will be a loss here, and which will be a loss here, which will be a loss on the 400 crore, which means we will give them the loss. Giving them the loss is exactly, what does exactly it means? It means that taking money from them. So in this case also, when we say that we are paying loss, that means we are receiving cash flow. In this case also receiving cash flow. So in both the cases we will be receiving cash flows. Obviously Sensex, if Sensex goes down, the return might be lesser. Even if it goes up, we are believing that the return will not be more than 1.15%. What if the return is only 0.5% in return? That means 0.5% on 400 crore. That means we will pay 0.5% and we will receive 1.15%. So all in all depends upon the Sensex now. Different values of the Sensex will be given. Opening and closing values of the Sensex will be given. You have to find out the return. Closing minus opening divided by opening is the Sensex return. That becomes the return of our portfolio on 400 crore, which will be paid by us. And this is the fixed amount received. That's it. It's very, very easy. Okay. Calculate the net payment to be received or paid at the end of each quarter if the Sensex turns out to be like this: 21, 21, 22, 21. So at present it is this. This becomes the opening. This is closing. Then this becomes the opening, closing. Then this becomes the opening, closing, opening, closing. This is how you have to do the calculation. I am doing it here. Have a look. First of all, from 0 to 1, 4, we'll put a column. Then we will write down the Sensex values, and then we will find out the return. See, the return between these two is this much, 1.2037. How to calculate that? 21,860 minus 21,600 divided by 21,600. This is exact return. No annual or quarterly conversions are required in this. 21,860 minus 21,600 divided by 21,600 into 100. 1.2037. So understand that this is the Sensex return, and this automatically becomes the return on our portfolio. 1.2037. Now our portfolio return will be equal to 1.2037 because the beta of the portfolio is 1 man. Now calculate 1.2037% of 400 crore. 400 into 1.2037%, that's 4.848. See, 8148. How did we calculate this? Simply percentage multiplied by 400 crore. So this is what we earned and we are paying. This is payable. We said that whatever is the return on our portfolio, we will pay it to you. You pay us 1.15% fix. What is the 1.15%? 400 crore into 1.15%. That's 4.6 crore fix. Right? Now understand. So we will pay this and we will receive this. So net is the payment in this case because we are paying more. 4.8 crore is the payment, 4.6 crore is the receipt. But what happened in the second case? Sensex went down. There is a loss in Sensex and we will pay loss to them. See, paying loss means cash inflow. Paying profit means cash outflow. If there is a profit to me and I paid that to you, it's a cash outflow to me. But if there is a loss to me and I pay that to loss, means you are bearing the loss for me. You pay me back. because I don't want to bear the loss now. So that will be a cash inflow. So 4.6, please understand, 4.6, 1.46. So either way you can do it like this, minus 1.4640 minus 4.6. So 6.0640 will be the cash inflow. I will receive this, I will receive this one as well, because I'm paying you the loss. So understand that this is a cash inflow. In the second case, there is an increase in the Sensex, so the Sensex is giving you good return. Because of that, there is a net outflow. I am paying 5.5. I have earned more on the portfolio. I am paying more 5.5, receiving 4.6. In the next case, again there is a loss. So I will pay you the loss. I will pay the swap party. We will pay the swap party this loss. So that means this is our cash inflow. This is again our cash inflow. The total will add up. Don't try to write down plus minus sign. These plus minus signs are related to cash inflow and outflow. If the minus is there, that means cash outflow. Plus is there, that means cash inflow. Understood the swapping? It's very simple, sir. I just swapped my return on the portfolio with the other party in exchange of the fixed return. I swapped the variable return because every quarter the return will be different, and I told him, you take the return on my portfolio, you give me 1.15% for fix. That means if the returns are more, it's your benefit because you are going to pay me fixed amount. But if the returns are less, it's my benefit because you will get lesser return and I will get more. Smooth. I think interest rate swap is one of the best thing to solve because it doesn't involve a lot of calculation, technicalities. It's very simple, give and take. Obviously, every calculation was different, but it's, I think, fun to solve the questions of interest rate swaps. So with this, we finish our chapter of interest rate risk management, sir. In the next chapter, we are going to start with the Forex. Bye-bye for now.